Alright, welcome back to Alejandro's Engineered Lifestyle. My name is Alejandro Mendoza. I am a mechanical engineer working in the aerospace industry. My latest video about the 890 Duke R, the 2022 model year as opposed to the rest specifically, was very well received. And I'd actually love to talk about a comment that I received on that video. It was very intriguing, so thank you very much for your comment. And I'd just like to provide some insight into that. Now, in this day and age of not only yearly iPhone and GoPro updates, we also get updates every couple of years to motorcycles and automobiles, which from an engineering standpoint is quite the feat. And it provides us quite the temptation to buy the latest and greatest. In fact, it's nearly relentless. And when you're likely to only have the greatest for just a couple of years, it's providing you even more pressure to upgrade. And I don't know about you, I just don't quite have the funds to do so with vehicles just yet. Maybe one day, but not yet. If you aren't paying attention to industry news and spy shots, purchasing something may leave you with an obsolete, not technically obsolete, but an obsolete product. But we're here to talk tea. We are here to wildly speculate and embrace our inner spec sheet warriors. Now, if you're not aware, this photo indicates that we have a new offering in the middleweight naked segment coming from KTM here soon. And what people believe this to be is the 990 Duke. And from this image, we can actually see a larger radiator. We see here a reworked rear arm, as well as a larger and rerouted exhaust. So the first two of these elements being tested on this mule clearly indicate a greater capacity for power. Increased cooling would certainly support mitigating the thermal load associated with increased horsepower in the low RPMs that manufacturers are being forced to adopt via the tune to meet emissions regulations, especially those that are more stringent as in Europe. Now, from the comfort of our chairs, we're really incapable of discerning if the footprint of the engine is any different, and it certainly doesn't give us any glaring indicators that it is a revised engine altogether. But we do know that 100cc of displacement is actually within the realm of what can be added via just small changes to engine geometry. As an engineer, I know that engine architecture is designed with power figures in mind. The forces and the resulting stresses must be accounted for. In doing that, you also want to make something that is future-proof. The fact that this engine has already been iterated upon in a displacement manner from 790 to 890 really indicates that this engine was initially designed with future iteration and horsepower increases in mind. And on the 890, this was accomplished with minimal changes, namely increasing the bore just 2.7 millimeters and increasing the stroke 3.1 millimeters. Such a small change really eliminates the need to retool as well as redesign the engine block in general, hence saving enormous amounts of money, and instead shifts that redesign to other components that are cheaper to revise, such as the crankcase, crankshaft, cylinder head, and balancer shaft. I know that doesn't sound less expensive, but in the greater manufacturing picture, it is. And with this in mind, we're all but guaranteed that this will again be the path that KTM takes to update the Duke to a 990 displacement, as to minimize cost and preserve their profit. Though the initial design was certainly taking these future iterations into account, it's no doubt that stress testing of the higher horsepower configurations, as well as really just assessing the market for these middleweight bikes, was a reason that we didn't start off with a 990 middleweight offering from KTM. So with all that being said, increased torque and horsepower dictate a strengthened path for that power to be relayed to the ground, hence the beefier rear swing arm. Unfortunately, this also means added weight, and that going into weight, we also are led to look now towards the exhaust. We see a massive exhaust revision. Unfortunately, the revision will be another massive step towards making an already quiet bike even more inaudible, and this is because Karen Cagers, the worldwide, have actually started implementing noise ordinances, specifically in European cities, where it's being proposed that motorcycles be banned altogether in city centers, which is kind of a worrying prospect for us motorcycle riders, especially those of us that commute. And hopefully such resolutions do not pass, but KTM is hedging their bets by making these bikes even quieter than they already are, which is something that I'm not a proponent of, and actually will be addressing on my own bike with the aftermarket. One benefit of this configuration that I see, though, at least from an aesthetic standpoint, for my own taste, is that we are going from a dirt bike-esque mounting location to a lower kind of sport bike-esque mounting position, and that actually will improve, in my mind, will improve the aesthetics of the bike, although the massive muffler pictured, as well as the increased mass of the tubing routed underneath the bike, will undoubtedly increase the weight gain of the 990, and this will come with added horsepower. It's supposed to be within the realm of 130 to 135, maybe 140 at maximum, and around 90 foot-pounds if we are to believe similar increases in displacement and their capabilities. So this jump in specs is nearly congruent to that seen between the 790 and 890. But just as with any update, this gives rise to the potential for things to go awry, in that revision of hardware then comes with its own ghosts in the machine. I mean, there's just so many factors that can go wrong. Not to say that KTM isn't trying to remedy these by attaching them to a test mule and putting the miles on the bike. Obviously, they do their due diligence, but there's only so much you can do before release. Also, another thing to consider is the 890's continuing aftermarket support, whether it be the brand new 2022 or all the way down to the 2020 model, which is my model year. These bikes are able to achieve about 9 horsepower all throughout the power band, greater than what they came from the factory with, just with proper tuning. And that is pretty much just cleaning up the fueling in the low RPM. All that being said, I'm not here to judge anyone for waiting for the latest and greatest, and I myself do this quite often for stuff. Really, you don't want to miss out, and in that regard, it is the perfect marketing ploy. But I will point out that doing so also forces you to pay the latest and greatest price, as well as become subject to the current global supply chain issues, the logistic issues with these things also being manufactured overseas. Ultimately, we all just love riding motorcycles, and in order to do so, you have to have a motorcycle to ride. So at some point, you got to jump in. I chose the 2020 890 Ducar. Altogether, I'm very happy with my entry point. Let me know if you've made your entry into the middleweight naked market, or if you're riding a completely different bike right now altogether, and if you're considering 890R versus 990. Yeah, so thanks again for this awesome comment, and I hope you all have a great day.